Alrighty, what an interesting night of football, huh? Greetings and salutations, everyone. My name is Andrew Kirchhoff, and welcome to our Monday night live stream for, of course, the 2024 fantasy football season in regards to week 2. Hope you guys are doing well. Welcome. Again, for the next couple hours, I'm going to be answering questions in regards to, waiver wire potential pickups going into this upcoming week. Of course, this is already overreaction Monday. Many of us are potentially in absolute shambles based on what just happened a couple hours ago with Christian McCaffrey being deemed out within this game and inactive. That is something that I didn't anticipate to see. Obviously, there was a possibility that it was a non-zero chance, but the fact that he shows up and unfortunately does not play, definitely did hurt many of our teams. But like I've said over the course of the last couple weeks, it is vital that if you are a Christian McCaffrey manager, you should have Jordan Mason on roster just in case. Even in earlier today's waiver wire pickup video, I specifically said regarding Jordan Mason, if you have Christian McCaffrey, you have to pick him up before this game. And even if you don't, just pick him up because worst case scenario, you're dropping somebody off of your bench that you were going to drop anyway, and then you have the insurance policy going forward. And did Jordan Mason show up and ball out? The fact of the matter is Jordan Mason has already proven in seasons past that he is an effective runner and efficient in terms of yards per carry. But anybody you put behind this offensive line is going to find success. So whether it was Jordan Mason or Elijah Mitchell, which unfortunately obviously is on the IR, they were going to find success. And obviously they ran through this Jets defense. The Jets offense, on the other hand, I know many of you in the live chat have already mentioned Allen Lazard. The thing is, Allen Lazard already has a rapport with Aaron Rodgers. He was brought into this organization last season as a free agent signing, primarily because of Aaron Rodgers. So they have that rapport. And for those of you who are wondering whether or not he's a potential pickup, I don't mind the idea of it. Once we get more utilization out of Mike Williams, it may impede on Allen Lazard's upside. But as it currently stands, with Aaron Rodgers being so comfortable with him, the dude played well. Even prior to the final drive where, of course, Tyrod Taylor was throwing him the ball. Ultimately, he's going to be a part of this offense, an extension of Aaron Rodgers to an extent that is going to have potential value. So anyway, I'm going to be here for the next hour answering questions. If you guys have any, type it in the chat. If it includes a specific overall question regarding a trade or a waiver wire pickup, please do me a favor and include the scoring format. That really does help determine a lot of the potential risks and or the way that I would approach the pickup, the trade, etc. Outside of that, again, earlier today, I did end up putting out my waiver wire pickups of the week. Obviously, Jordan Mason is far more valuable due to the events of tonight. I know somebody in the live chat earlier was saying, is he legit? Should I start him this upcoming week under the assumption that Christian McCaffrey doesn't play? Of course. You saw how many points Jordan Mason just put up. And going forward, as long as Christian McCaffrey is not going to be implemented within this offense because they're holding him back, because again, it is a very long season ahead of them, considering, again, they have Super Bowl aspirations, the assumption would be that Jordan Mason could have this role for a while. 21.7 points in a half PPR, 28 rushing attempts of opportunity, all while, of course, Deebo Samuel even got himself a goal line touchdown, is quite impressive. So anyway, let me go ahead and answer a couple of these super chats that just came in. First and foremost, Maurice Drake says, my uncle dropped Christian McCaffrey. Wait, what? My uncle dropped Christian McCaffrey? Is he out for the year? No, he's not out for the year. I think your uncle may have misread perhaps a report. What you should do, Maurice, if it's a family league, the commissioner should put McCaffrey back on his team because, again, it's a family league. And we probably shouldn't be punishing somebody for maybe making a mistake in that regard. Steven Peters in the chat says, I had an $800 parlay and missed it by 2 rushing yards from Deebo. I'm in shambles. Listen, brother, you want to talk about shambles. About 10 minutes ago, I was about to punch a hole through the wall because your boy was 1 reception away from not being able to cash in on his parlay from this week in terms of underdog pick'ems. We'll go over that in just a moment. But yeah, talking about shambles, I was almost in it. Phil sends in a super chat question. Thank you, Phil. Says, Moody wanted me the week. Yeah, I'm glad that you started him over Zerline. That was great. I ended up this week with 2-1 overall. But if Tyrod just gave Breece Hall the ball one more time in the last minute or for a touchdown there, I would have won my 3rd game. It's all good. Listen, 2-1 is a good start for the beginning of the season. Okay, let's see here. what do we got here? In terms of questions, again, if you have any trade questions, waiver wire questions, let me know. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pop the chat up onto the screen just so everybody is aware as to what exactly I am referencing to in regards to the questions I'm answering going forward. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Let's get into this. We'll get to this super chat question in a moment. Just want to go up here. Let's see here. Adrian Anderson says, what is your take on how Rodgers and the Jets looked overall offensively? Additionally, what about the defense? The defense couldn't stop a soul in terms of the running game, but quite frankly, what we're going to begin to see over the course of the rest of the season is that really nobody can stop the 49ers running attack, regardless of who's playing at running back. So that's going to be a consistent form for every defense that takes on this team. As for Rodgers and the offense, again, when you're playing up against the San Francisco 49ers defense, it's a lot different in comparison to if they were taking on the Tennessee Titans, who they face this upcoming week, which will be a more regular test, I guess, in this circumstance. They're not playing against a Super Bowl contender. As it currently stands, they are not in the form of being a playoff team, much less a Super Bowl contender. They had a couple good drives there, but ultimately, I don't know. Some of the play calling was a little bit shoddy from my perspective. Additionally, the offensive line really wasn't able to make Breece Hall have the kind of high upside performance that we were looking for. Obviously, he got himself utilization within the receiving game, which kind of saved his night there with the rushing touchdown as well. But going forward, that running game has got to be far more, fine-tuned, really. And in the passing game, the fact that with Aaron Rodgers, Garrett Wilson only gets 5 receptions is alarming. But they're going to improve. Again, they're still trying to build a rapport. This is the 4th preseason game. Let's not freak out. All right, let's see here. Don't drop Zamir White for him. No way. I don't know who you're talking to, but yeah, I agree. Do not drop Zamir White. It's just the first week. Do not panic. And if somebody's thinking about dropping Zamir White for Alexander Mattison, I would not suggest you do so. I had a feeling and replace Christian McCaffrey in the lineup. Out of baby John Rife. Let's see here. Elseway says, shall I worry the Jets defense? No. Jets defense, don't worry about it. Again, the next 3 games, they play against the Titans. They play against, if I'm not mistaken, the Denver Broncos. And then they have another really easy matchup. So upcoming here, nothing really to worry about. As for Christian Kirk, again, they were up in that game very early, 17-0, if I'm not mistaken, 17-3. They ran the ball for majority of that second half. So Christian Kirk, not really something to be worried about. Michael Pittman Jr., again, the contributions from Anthony Richardson were 2 50-plus yard passing touchdowns. Those are not going to be consistent, ways for them to move the ball down the field. Pittman will be better off, especially considering he won't be playing Houston every week. He definitely struggles against them within the matchup. If Christian McCaffrey is healthy, Mason is obsolete. That's absolutely correct. It's 100% whether or not Christian McCaffrey is ready to go. Jets will be good versus bad teams, of course. Everybody's good against bad teams. Just wait till you see what the Washington Commanders do against the New York Giants defense this week and vice versa. 219 Pyro says, any tight end recommendations to replace Njoku until he comes back? Was thinking about the Rams tight end. Yeah, Rams tight end will be the next best option, assuming, of course, Isaiah Likely is not available. So as it currently stands on my waiver wire video, I didn't have too many tight end options because, again, a lot of them are sketchy. So Isaiah Likely was number 1. Colby Parkinson, the Rams tight end, was number 2. Number 3 was Luke Schoonmaker, which is the second string tight end for the Dallas Cowboys, which again is going to be the replacement of Jake Ferguson until he returns. After him, it's probably going to be Juwan Johnson, even though, Juwan Johnson did score a touchdown. That's great. That's fantastic. The leading tight end in terms of scoring from the Saints was, I forget his name. Goodness gracious. Why? He played for the Raiders. He was with Derek Carr. Why can't I remember his name? I have to go look it up now. Somebody in the chat's going to say it. I'm going to beat you to it. As a right, Foster Moreau. Foster Moreau, even though he was the higher scoring tight end on the team, if I'm not mistaken, he's in the concussion protocol. There's a chance that he doesn't end up playing this week, which could open up opportunity for Juwan Johnson in that circumstance. So those would be kind of the better options. Otherwise, maybe even Zach Ertz as a potential play there going forward. Let's see here. Okay. This is back on screen. We're good to go. Moving on. Let's see. What do we have here? Worth dropping White for Madison? No, it's not worth it. Unless Zamir White is injured, Alexander Mattison is nothing more than a lower end, middle of the pack RB4. Wouldn't judge the Jets offense based on, exactly. The Niners defense is great. Mason shouldn't be on the waiver unless it's a taco. Listen, you'd be surprised how many leagues. Again, if you're playing in like a 10-team league and there's only like 4 or 5 bench spots, which again, a lot of leagues are kind of set up like that. there's really no room for those kind of situations. But yeah, you move Christian McCaffrey to your IR for this week. You pick up Mason, or at least hopefully have him. Let's see here. What do you make of Harrison Jr.'s terrible performance? Again, I preferenced you guys with the Tuesday video of last week, the waiver wire, the wide receiver rankings. I preferenced that it's a really tough defense to play against, and that's exactly what it was. Kyler really wasn't throwing the ball deep down the field. So really he just settled with Greg Dortch and, of course, Trey McBride. Going forward, they will implement more Marvin Harrison. I'm not freaking out after one performance. Okay. We had a couple of super chats that were sent in. Let's go and answer this first one. All right. The Recess. Thank you very much. Greatly appreciate it. It says, in a 1 point for 10 yards league, would you consider Rashid Shaheed as a top 10 wide receiver? No, absolutely not. Oh, wait. Is this with return yardage as well? He missed 2 games, had 1,400 combined last year. Okay, so if you are playing in a league in which you're getting points per return yardage as well, I would probably venture to say that there's a good chance that he is. What I want to do actually really quickly is look this up. So if I go Rashid Shaheed. So last season, assuming you were getting a point per any yardage, so including return yards, last season he had 384 kick return yards and 339 punt return yards. That's an additional 700 yards of production, which, again, like you're mentioning, that's 1,400 or 1,500 all-purpose yards within the given year. So in that kind of a format where you're getting points per return yardage, abso-freaking-lutely he's in the top tier. But very few leagues play in this kind of a circumstance, Recess. So that's why I'm just preferencing to ask the question, because, again, sometimes it's just, sometimes it's just not the case. So any clarification on that would be appreciated. Thank you. Let me scroll down here. Constantino said Mason said he knew that he was playing by Friday night. Yeah, of course, they told him, but you think they were telling the public? Of course not. They weren't going to tell the public. Of course, the 49ers wanted to keep that information to themselves because they should. That's a strategic advantage. Let's see here. Jonathan Prince, thank you. Or Jonathan Price, excuse me. 10-team full PPR. I have Kupp and Puka. On my team, Rice, Watson, Brian Thomas Jr., and Sutton. Been offered Olave in London for Puka. Wait. Someone offered you Olave and London for Puka Nacua, and Puka Nacua is on the injured reserve? Yeah, let's take the deal, Jonathan Price. Take the deal, insta accept that. Let's go. Lockett available in my league? Yeah, if Lockett is available, then it seems like he's still going to be in that conversation of being a top 2 receiver for that offense. JSN is going to have to wait until something happens. Let's see here. Should I drop Chase Brown this week? It depends on what you're going to pick up. Like, if you're going to pick up J.K. Dobbins, then I can understand the potential move there. But, if you're going to pick up Jaleel McLaughlin, perhaps. But outside of those kind of options, it's tough. Drop Zach Moss for J.K. Dobbins or no? No, I'd like to keep Zach Moss because he's a starter. If he wasn't the clear number 1 back, then I would say, okay, sure, we can drop him. But in this circumstance, considering he is the clear number 1, and the Bengals offense is only going to improve as the season progresses here, I wouldn't drop him. I would try to find another alternative way here, Yo-Yo, to try to make that move. Let's see here. Full PPR. First and foremost, thank you for the super chat. Full PPR. Start 2 running backs. Dobbins, Eckler, and Jay Will. I mean, Dobbins has to play this week because they play against the Carolina Panthers. The Carolina Panthers got torched, as you guys remember, by the New Orleans Saints yesterday. And that should continue even with the Chargers in the run-first attack. Again, the Chargers, even though offensively they didn't run too many plays, they still had more rushing attempts than passing attempts in their offense. So they're going to continue to be a run-first approach. As for Eckler, potentially this week against the New York Giants, very advantageous. Jay Will taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers, pretty sketchy. I think it might just be these two as it currently stands in the full PPR format. Dobbins and Eckler would be my suggestion as of today, which is, again, Monday, but we have a long time until we get to Sunday and we figure that out. Should I start David Montgomery next week? I mean, you should start him every week because, in the preseason, we ranked him as a top 18 running back, right? So the implication was that in a 12-team league, he would be a starter every single week within the starting running back positions. So if you are luxurious enough to where you have multiple running backs at a high capacity, then obviously we're in a position to where maybe you want to go ahead and start him as your flex going forward, potentially. All right, let me go ahead. I need to update this chat just so we're all on the same page. Scrolling back up here. Okay, we had a couple super chats that came in that I ended up missing. Let me go ahead and catch up with them right now. So after those questions, we had Ibrahim who says, Breece Hall and Moody. Breece Hall and Moody. I was down 13.5, remember? He had Debo too. Did you win? If you won, that's fantastic. Was it you, Ibrahim, that asked about Zerline or Moody yesterday? And I said Moody? Either way, I'm not taking credit. It's just a better play because, again, that's the better offense. They should be implied to score more. If that's the case, congratulations, pulling out the dub. Johnny sends in a super chat, says Lockett is available in my league. Is it worth the pickup? I think it depends on... Okay, so here's the thing. Is Lockett going to be your number 4 receiver, your number 5, your number 6? Where is he within your overall depth chart of play? I think that certainly matters. Obviously, Lockett last season was a top 36 wide receiver still. If he can continue that kind of trend of pace, if still being a relevant wide receiver, having up and down weeks, sure, but still being relevant to an extent. In terms of fab, I mean, if he's available, I'm not spending more than like 5%, to be honest. A couple dollars here or there, if you can get him, great. Otherwise, I'm not like super excited about the potential long term because I do think that JSN and DK will eventually be the number 1 and 2 in this offense. Mason Rounds sends in a super chat, says, fantasy aside, how's your day been? I literally have done nothing but fantasy. I wake up, I fantasy. I go to the bathroom, I'm looking at fantasy articles. I'm looking at news updates. Dinner, I'm watching the game. After the game, I'm live streaming. After the live stream, I'm preparing for tomorrow's video. There's nothing but football in this life, and it's a good one. I'll explain to you. I mean, that is what it is. Thank you, though, Mason. Even though week 1 was relatively low scoring, ultimately, I think the stat that they mentioned during today's broadcast is something that I was, referring to yesterday. Because yesterday during the live stream, I was explaining that the passing yard average from yesterday amongst all quarterbacks for week 1 was 191 yards. They mentioned on the broadcast today that week 1 of this year was the 5th lowest passing yards total by quarterbacks in the last 20 years of week 1s. So again, just getting an understanding that week 1 was the 4th preseason game. Everything henceforth is going to begin to kind of build up in these offenses now that they've kind of built a little bit of rapport and actually have seen full action. Again, you got to remember a lot of these offenses, like the Rams, for example, they didn't play a single preseason game. Their starters do not play. So now that they have that, that game experience now and the jitters are out, we're ready to go. As for your follow-up question there, Mason, back on track. I have Chase, Adams, Debo, Shakir, and Palmer. I got offered Kelsey for Adams and Palmer. Only tight end I have is Ferguson. As it currently stands, I'd like to keep Adams in this scenario because I like the wide receiver core that you have. I'd then just kind of pivot to asking what's available on waiver wire, and can we get away with playing that person for the remainder until Ferguson does return. So I'll be looking out for your response, Mason, in the live chat. Thank you. And then at that point, we can continue the dialogue and then we can get to your answer. Joe says, in a half PPR flex, Puka is on the IR. Marvin Harrison, Deontay Johnson, Roma Dunze, Shakir. Roma Dunze is getting an MRI and he's week to week, so he may not even play this upcoming week. Shakir as my other wide receivers. Breece, Swift, Brian Robinson Jr. are my running backs. See next chat for question. Okay, got it. So let me go ahead and let me look your name up, Joe. Control F. We have Joe here. Okay, so Joe... The next, would you trade Breece for Dobbins and Garrett Wilson, or trade Marvin for Rice? Okay, I do neither of the two potential trades. I would keep Marvin Harrison and I would keep Breece Hall. With all of the context that you have given me in regards to obviously the injuries that you have accrued over the course of week 1, I'd still rather have Breece Hall rest of season, and I'd rather have Marvin Harrison rest of season. I appreciate the question though, Joe. Keegan Yap sends in a question, says full PPR, JSN for Zamir White and Demarcus Robinson. You're trading away JSN, you're bringing in Demarcus Robinson, Zamir White. I don't know if in a full PPR, unless you're super desperate at running back, I don't know if Zamir White's the answer that you want. I wouldn't say that it is, especially in a full PPR format. At that point, I'd rather just keep the JSN and hope for the best going forward. Obviously, yesterday's matchup against the Denver Broncos wasn't him finding much success, but again, it's week 1. We'll figure it out as we progress here. But I don't think I'm making that trade, honestly. Okay, so the context that I was looking for was from Mason Rounds. Mason Rounds. Let's see. Do I have any context from Mason yet? Let's go ahead and update the chat. Anything? Okay, Mason says Isaiah likely was on the waiver. I have priority number 3. I don't believe that the other two are doing is okay. Taysom is also on the waivers along with Colby Parkinson, who I found interesting. Yeah, Colby Parkinson would probably be the play. I don't make that trade, and I probably pick up Colby Parkinson, and I utilize him until we get more information regarding the return of Ferguson, which, again, it's an MCL sprain, so the anticipation very similar to something like the injury that was sustained by Jordan Love in that first game. It could be a situation in which he's potentially out for, 3 to 6 weeks. So Colby Parkinson can be the answer until then, because, again, we know that Puka Nacua is not going to be available for the next 4 weeks minimum. Okay, thank you very much. Super chat questions are continued in the form of, okay, we took care of Keegan. We move on to Bruce Cowdery. Thank you, Bruce. Says if Puka is out, which he is, the next 4 weeks, your thoughts, hits on Rams number 2 slot, full PPR. Look, here's the thing. Cooper Kupp is going to be the offense, purely. Him and Kyren Williams. Outside of that, Demarcus Robinson never leaves the field, never leaves the game, and he will probably be the next benefactor along with Colby Parkinson. Those are the two that I'm looking towards. Outside of those guys, really, there's nobody that is of the talent of Puka Nacua to be able to fill in within his role and be a consistent option. But the fact that Parkinson and, of course, Demarcus Robinson, they are so much so in this offense and so integrated because of the 11 personnel being about 90% of their offensive formations. It pretty much secures them within a starting role, but additionally with an expanded upside of targets going forward in the absence of Puka. Let's see here. Mark Marr says full PPR Debo or Rashi rest of season. As it currently stands, let's see, what did Debo do in terms of total usage today? Obviously got himself a lot of utilization on the ground, which is certainly helpful. 16.2 fantasy points, 9 targets, 5 receptions, 54, 8 rushing attempts for 23 and a touchdown. Again, before the season even started, I had Debo ahead of Rashi. I think I'd continue to have it as such. Just more touchdown upside within the offense, higher scoring upside, rushing ability. Obviously, he's more injury prone based on what his career has shown us, but ultimately, I still think he's more valuable. Let's see here. 7th season says, trade Brandon Cooks for Ladd McConkey. I don't have an issue with that. That's fine by me. Yeet sends in a question, says, by the way, Yeet, thank you very much. Very generous of you. You can take that kind of a donation and go straight to the Patreon and get all the rankings, etc. But I greatly appreciate it nonetheless. 16-team league standard scoring. My week 2 starters consist of JK. Okay, let me actually throw this up on the screen just so we're all aware as to what the heck this team is. My week 2 starters are JT and Dobbins, along with DJ Moore and Jamison Williams, benching Zamir White and Ayuk. Ayuk could end up being a decent start this upcoming week. Again, he'll have another week under his belt and he'll get more utilization nonetheless. Thoughts? Also, Puka is on the IR. When he comes back, which wide receivers should I drop? Okay, when he comes back, we can revisit this question. But as it currently stands, I'm okay with the way that you've built this. Ayuk's probably going to be your flex this week, though, because you have 1, 2, 3, 4. Ayuk's probably going to be your flex going forward. If there was no flex in this league, I'd have a hard time sitting Ayuk for Jamison Williams. That's all I'd have to say. So as it currently stands, that's where it sits. Also, Puka is in my IR. When he comes back, which wide receiver should I drop? Can only have 3. I see. So because of the 16-team format, there's probably no flex position. And because of this, once Puka comes back, you're most likely going to have to drop Jamison Williams, which it sucks. But, that's kind of the issue that you have considering you play in such a big league, which, again, it's a blessing and a curse to an extent. JK sends in a super chat, says, in a full PPR, who am I dropping for likely? Caleb Williams, Pat Freiermuth, or Tyrone Tracy. I have Singletary. Unless you think you need Caleb Williams because you have an early bye week, he can go. If not, it's got to be Tracy. I'll reserve judgment on Freiermuth with a couple more weeks, especially once we have potentially Russell Wilson there or a couple more weeks of experience for Justin Fields as a starting quarterback there. Joey sends in a super chat, says, trade away Dobbins for Coleman. I have Allen, as in Josh Allen, Brees, Kyren, London, Rice, Godwin as my starters. Look, as it currently stands, like I was mentioning yesterday in our Sunday night live stream, The issue with the Buffalo Bills is that still there's not a designated clear number one to where they're getting 10 targets a game or getting a vast majority of the overall opportunity. So considering that isn't the case, it's pretty tough for me to think we're in a situation where we'd be trading away a potential starting running back for a wide receiver in an offense that may not get a consistent volume of work every week henceforth. Even though he is clearly the number one based on overall targets, based on overall snap counts, based on overall routes ran, he is the number one wide receiver on that team. But I think I'd rather just keep the Dobbins. And if I'm going to trade Dobbins away, I'm looking for even more potentially than Coleman itself. Thank you for the question. Appreciate it, Joey. We had Sosa Ross, who says Pitts or Kincaid, Thursday Night Football, and Shaheed or the Rams wide receiver Puka. IR. I'm very confused as to what this question really means here. So Pitts or Kincaid this week is the assumption that I'm beginning to pick up on, I think. Between the two of them, we'll have a Thursday video that kind of decide that. I mean, you probably want to stick with the hot hand of Pitts, but I mean, he had to score a touchdown to be relevant. I think Kincaid will be better on Thursday, but obviously both of those guys relatively underwhelming in terms of total targets earned in week one. And Shaheed or the Rams wide receiver, I'm assuming when you mean Rams wide receiver, you mean Demarcus Robinson. If it's me, I think Demarcus Robinson provides a potential upgrade as of the next couple weeks until Puka returns. If you're looking for long-term value, it's Shaheed. If you're looking for short-term value, it's probably Demarcus Robinson as it currently stands. So thank you. ORNG says, boring topic. Do I drop Dicker for Boswell? I think Cameron Dicker's perfectly fine. I don't think you need to drop him. They play against Carolina this week, and they're probably going to score a pretty good volume of points, and they'll probably have extended drives that will get them in field goal range, and if they stall out, it'll be fine. As for Boswell, I mean, they play against Denver. It is going to be in Denver. He's going to be able to boot the ball. Both of them are great options. Both of them are in my, kind of waiver wire pickups for kickers as of today's episode, so you can pick whichever one you prefer out of the two, but I don't have an issue with keeping Dicker going forward. Let's see here. Andrew Burwell in the chat says, do I drop Javonte Williams for Parkinson if I have Ferguson? Thanks. I don't drop Javonte Williams yet. Again, he's a starting running back in the league. I'm not dropping him unless I'm playing in an 8-team league or something of that extent. I would look to try to find another way to pick up Colby Parkinson, which may be not dropping Ferguson, but moving Ferguson to your injured reserve once he's given the designation. Let's see here. Andres Nunez, thank you very much. Andres Nunez with a super chat says, in a half PPR, McCaffrey's owner wants Mason and Aaron Jones for Olave and Godwin. If you're giving up two running backs, you better get a running back in exchange. Getting Olave and Godwin is great, but I want to get a running back in exchange so that you don't lose out on the depth of Aaron Jones, right? So in terms of your depth, you said you have Puka, Adams, Ayuk. My other RBs are Gibbs, Hall, and Ford. Okay, so technically you can survive, and I would make the deal. Give me Olave and give me Godwin. I don't have an issue with that at all going forward. Let's see here. Ross Wong with a super chat. Thank you, Ross. Appreciate it. Ross says the following. Advice on trading for a running back. I'm in a 12-team full PPR 2-flex league. I have Ramondre, Zamir, Pollard, and Chase Brown currently. My wide receivers consist of Chase, Collins, Allen, Devontae Smith, and Puka Nacua. Also going to drop Schultz and Cousins for Likely and Baker. Okay, no issues with the drops. Likely and Baker are the better of the two. Hopefully you get them both. That would be great, Ross. As for your prior question in regards to trading for a running back, as it currently stands, I think you can survive with Ramondre, Pollard. Chase Brown and Zamir, they're going to have to be like perfect matchups to find success. Additionally, you could try to sell high on Pollard or Ramondre to go after running backs that didn't have great overall week ones. Just to put this into like a legitimate perspective. So when I look at the players at the running back position who obviously didn't have a great week one, and you could be going after in terms of trying to at least maybe see if someone is upset enough to trade them potentially away. I'd go after Kyron Williams immediately. No questions asked, 1,000%. I'd also be interested in going and knocking on the door to see if James Cook is available. The other running backs that are potentially, I'm going after Jonathan Taylor, Travis Etienne. Again, guys that put up only 10 points, but are top 5 or, top 10 running backs this season. Derrick Henry's. Those are the guys that I'm going and I'm knocking on the door, asking if they're potentially available in exchange for the running backs that you have that are coming off of huge weeks. Outside of that, I'm not trying to sell them low, and nor am I trying to sell like Zamir White off of that week, because really you'll get nothing in exchange for it, Ross. Thank you. Abide Los Angeles says, favorite running back on the waivers? Ford, Pollard, J.K. Dobbins, Brian Thomas Jr., or Mostert. Okay, so considering you're playing in a smaller league, of the available options, I think my favorite going forward as it currently stands is probably going to be Pollard as the number 1. Number 2, probably either going to be, it's probably Brian Thomas Jr. or Ford. Most likely will be Pollard, then Brian Thomas Jr., then Ford. Mostert's injury, I kind of want to keep an eye on. I don't know if he's going to miss this week. I don't know what the deal is with him, but obviously kind of fell out of favor there late in that game because, again, it became a passing attack. He got kind of shifted out of the overall scheme because they were down 17 points for so long there. But yeah, Pollard is for sure the most valuable and the favorite pickup out of the available options you have there by Los Angeles. Thank you. Jeb Cohen says, trade away Christian McCaffrey. If I can get something good, you better get a first-round selection back. Like if you're trading McCaffrey, I better be getting back CeeDee Lamb, Tyreek Hill, Justin Jefferson, Breece Hall, Bijan. I want to get a first round pick in exchange, right? My first round pick is getting traded for a first round pick. You know what I mean? Unless if you have Jordan Mason, you keep him, and of course you continue to ride Mason until, of course, Christian McCaffrey's returned healthy and ready to go, because you know that when he's back, the guy's 20 plus points per game. Let's see here. Iron sends in a question. Says Justin Fields trade value in a 4-point per passing touchdown league. Currently 0, I would say. I think he has quite literally 0 trade value because there is always a chance that this week could arrive, and by the time we get to Thursday, Mike Tomlin's coming out and saying that Russell Wilson is going to start this week. I would not doubt that there's a possibility, and considering that risk exists, it lowers his potential value going into this upcoming week and future weeks of the season. Okay, you know what I want to check? I want to see. Oops, sorry about that. Let me go ahead. Did my underdog play like fully go through results? Pick them, guys. Okay, so I'm gonna. I mean, what a crazy week. Okay, so really quickly, so I don't know if you guys remember earlier on this week via Underdog Fantasy, I put together a bet. Now, again, first and foremost, before we get there, while I'm mentioning Underdog, again, if you guys want my rankings every single Sunday morning for the remainder of the season, these rankings are by position: quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, kicker, defense, flex, half PPR, full PPR. That ranking will be sent every single Sunday morning from my email directly to yours so that you can help set your lineups. If you guys are interested in that, again, using code Andrew via Underdog Fantasy, signing up using, of course, code Andrew, minimum deposit of $10, and you're good to go. You'll get the rankings for the remainder of the season. The only thing that matters is that you haven't signed up before with the code and made a first-time deposit before the date of August 1st, 2024. And of course, as long as you're eligible based on your current location. But the thing that I wanted to mention specifically, as it currently stands, I mentioned that I was putting in a couple huge bets this week. But somebody earlier was talking about the shambles they were within because they missed out on an $800 parlay. I put together a couple slips here, and unfortunately, Christian McCaffrey didn't play. So I wasn't able to take advantage of the Jalen Milroe. That just got refunded. It was a $10 overall entry right here. As you can see, but I put $1,000 on this top entry, and I showed you guys this. I said every week this season I'm going to put down a $1,000 entry, and it ended up hitting. And even though Christian McCaffrey didn't play, they honored the overall play because, again, I got 6 receptions here, which again was barely 6 receptions, and I got the 2 touchdowns there, and I'm plus 1,000. Otherwise, if Christian McCaffrey plays, I'm plus 2,000 on the week. Anyway, you want to talk about shambles? I almost punched a hole through the wall. I mean, literally, it was when that 4th down came around and Aaron Rodgers got pulled, I was sick to my stomach, just putting it into perspective. What an absolute... before this game, your boy was in a highly stressful situation. But hey, it hit. And this upcoming week, I'll share my next $1,000 play. I'm not saying you got to put 1,000 on it, but we're going places every week. We're trying to put together some crazy plays. Angelo sends in a super chat, says, I have Christian Kirk and Jaden Reed in a full PPR into flex. Number 7 on the waiver list. Okay, very well. Should I put or drop one of Shakir, Shaheed, Brandon Cooks, or Wanda Robinson. No, keep both of the receivers you have and keep it moving. You're good. You don't need any of those wide receivers that you mentioned. Angelo, I think what you have on roster is more valuable than what is available as it currently stands. Thank you. Brett Webster sends in a super chat. Says, picked up Mason in one of my leagues a few days ago. He's still available in 2 of my other leagues. How much fab would you spend on Mason? Now, if you're a Christian McCaffrey owner, the answer is almost all, you're not emptying the entire clip of 100 fam. You're not going to use all 100% of your fab, but you need to spend a lot, because if in fact Christian McCaffrey, they're going to take it easy with him. I know he was limited at practice, so that means he'll probably be ready by not next week, maybe even the week after that, week 3 base minimum. For insurance purposes, because there's always a potential of Christian McCaffrey returning, and because it's a soft tissue injury of a calf, he could once again re-injure that calf injury. Considering the re-aggravation is always possible, you got to spend a pretty penny. You probably have to spend over 30%, maybe even get up, depending on what your league mates do, even more, which again is very expensive for a backup. But unfortunately, if you have Christian McCaffrey, you're the manager, you're spending a lot. If you're not the Christian McCaffrey manager, you really could go for it, but you're not going to utilize a lot, because, I mean, if everything pans out the way we anticipate, at best, maybe we get one more starting week out of Mason this upcoming week. Then it's Matt McCaffrey for the remainder of the year. Abide Los Angeles says, should I trade Godwin for Jonathan Taylor? I'm solid at wide receiver. Yeah, if you can get Jonathan Taylor in exchange for Chris Godwin, you absolutely should. You'd be fleecing that other fantasy manager in your league, though. Rob sends in a super chat, says, in a half PPR, I won the running back lottery. Jonathan Taylor, Saquon, Ramondre, Kamara, J.K. Dobbins, Chubb on the IR. But I have Devontae Adams and Christian Kirk as my wide receivers. Package which wide receivers / running backs to upgrade realistic target. I mean, look, realistically, JT, Saquon, Ramondre, Kamara. If it's me, I'm trading Ramondre. I don't want any business with Ramondre going forward. I think this is the best time to sell, high, especially considering it's going to get more difficult for that offense as they continue. Teams are just going to stack the box and be able to beat them up. So if you can sell Ramondre and go after wide receivers that did not perform well in week 1, and boy, are there an abundance of wide receivers that did not perform well. I'm talking about the guys like Olave, Drake London, Marvin Harrison Jr., Garrett Wilson, Amon-Ra St. Brown. I know that these names are bigger names, and it is difficult to potentially go out and trade for them, but I'm telling you to just try, because you never know. Somebody may be frustrated. Maybe somebody didn't like how Jamar Chase played in week 1, and you can go ahead and scoop him up because he only put up 9 points. And then for the remainder of the season, you've somehow pulled off the greatest heist, quite literally Ocean's 11 status heist, in which you're coming away with all of the casino's money. But yeah, that's kind of the direction I'm leaning towards. Try to go after the big boys. Don't sell yourself short. And even though you may think that's not a quote-unquote realistic opportunity, I think it is, especially if you can find somebody that is struggling at running back. There's somebody in your league that had Swift and Javonte or Raheem Mostert, and they're like, I'm in trouble because my RB2 sucks. Let's see here. Let me go ahead. After Rob's question again, thank you, Rob. Appreciate it. Jordan Mason says, a drafted Jordan Mason sends in a super chat saying that he drafted Jordan Mason very late in all of his drafts despite not owning Christian McCaffrey. Is it a terrible strategy to try to predict injuries based on intuition? No, it's not Listen, fantasy football can be played in any which way you like. There is no book on how to win because the variables that are implemented within the game speak to chaos and luck. And all of those different variables cannot be predictable. Therefore, even though we expect Amon-Ra to score 15 points per game in a half PPR, when he shows up and puts up 2.8, again, that is the variable of randomness. That is the nature of the game of football, that not every week everyone has to show up and play at the top of their peak. It's a team game, and it's the best team game of all time. But yeah, in this scenario, the idea of like, hey, I'm picking up players because Christian McCaffrey's been injury prone in the past, I don't think that's a terrible intuition. I mean, obviously you're not sitting there and like putting on voodoo curse magic. And if you're doing that, I mean, more power to you, but still. Let's see here. Dane says, can you make a sell high, buy low video? I would like to, but I would want to do it after week 1, potentially by the time we get to week 3, maybe week 2, maybe week 3, like a trade targets video, players that you should be selling high and then buying low. I want to give it one more week because again, I want to ensure that the fluke performances are fluke performances, and they're not consistent behavior of a lack of opportunity or a lack of overall productivity. So in about probably next week, probably next Friday or something like not this upcoming Friday, but the week after, week 3s. Anadi says, Andrew, would you rather trade Kelsey for McBride? I don't have an issue with that. If you want to get out of the Kelsey situation, I think McBride is a great answer in order to do so. Matt in the chat says, J.K. Dobbins or Xavier Worthy for my flex. Just lost Puka Nacua. This week, it is really difficult for me not to suggest to play J.K. Dobbins, especially considering they play against Carolina. Carolina is quite literally the best matchup at the position. Last season, this season, their run-stop defense is terrible. And if I'm not mistaken, I think their best defensive tackle just got out for the season. I think he got a season-ending injury, unfortunately. Let me go ahead and confirm this. Let me go look at the depth chart of the Carolina Panthers, and let me cross-reference that really quickly, just so I'm not talking out of my ass. Derek Brown, their best defensive tackle or defensive lineman, is out for the season. So Carolina's run-stop defense is going to be that much less. Therefore, Dobbins is probably the guy that I'm looking to play in this circumstance. As for Worthy, if Marquise Hollywood-Brown is out again, I'd be very much so inclined to even play him because of the upside, but I typically lean towards that running back as it currently stands because of that incredible matchup on hand. Abai Los Angeles says, what do you think, Chase and Henry for CMC? Are you getting Chase and Henry? I'm confused, Abai. Just to clarify, the clarity on that would be incredible. Thank you. Let's see here. Somebody in the chat says, thoughts on Zach Moss? The Cincinnati Bengals start slow. That's what the Cincinnati Bengals this year, 2023, 2022, they haven't won a game in week 1 or 2 in like the last 3 seasons, right? So they start slow. This week they take on the Kansas City Chiefs. After that, once we get to week 3, I think we can make a real designation as to, look, we already know that Zach Moss is clearing away the number 1 RB. But going forward, if we begin to see this offense continue to kind of ramp up, find success, obviously they didn't play in the preseason much with their starters, specifically Chase, Higgins, together on the field at the same time with Burrow. Zach Moss didn't play in the preseason. So once they start to ramp up, if he begins to get more and more opportunity and Chase Brown kind of fades out, they'll win RB2 with the upside of a touchdown leading to high-end RB2 numbers, right? Obviously, he doesn't have as much impact as Mixon because he's not going to get all the receiving work like Mixon used to get in the past within that offense because Chase Brown is there. But it doesn't matter. As long as he's getting the rushing utilization, there's a lot of value within that. Alders says, yo, Big K, was Jameson a fluke or will we see more? I think we'll see more. Look, here's the thing. We're going to see more, but it's not going to be as common as you potentially may think because, again, think about it, right? Amon-Ra St. Brown was a no-show. And Sam Laporta didn't have a great game either. So if, in fact, we start to send more targets in their direction, it's going to definitely bite Jameson Williams in the ass. But he certainly is a player that can make a single play, whether it's on a rushing attempt or on a deep pass, and take that for 40 yards and a touchdown. That is what he's capable of. He'll still be implemented as the wide receiver too, which has value a lot within that offense, considering they're a high-scoring team. Obviously, they didn't put up much points in week 1. But again, they played against a pretty solid defense there with the Rams. But ultimately, we'll see more of it just in spurts of time. It's not going to be a weekly thing. If it's a weekly thing, sheesh, I'll take it. But I don't think it will be, considering all the other mouths that need to be fed and the fact that he's kind of the number 3 receiver of the offense behind Amon-Ra and Laporta, respectively. All right, let's see here. Let me see. Is Abide type in the chat yet? I want to get clarification because if you're getting Chase and Henry, I'll take it. At that point, I don't mind the sell. Let's hear. Luis Castillo sends in a super chat. Thank you, Luis. Appreciate it. Says, Standard League, thinking of offering Xavier Worthy for Lad Savvy, ? In a standard scoring format, I think I'd rather have Xavier Worthy because I think his performances are more implicated with a higher yardage count because of the deep ball and or potentially a touchdown. But if you want to take Lad, I don't have an issue with it. Preseason rankings, I had Lad ahead of Xavier, and I think I'm going to continue to keep it as such. Sammy Wiltshire sends in a question. Thank you, Sammy. I appreciate it. Says, hey, Andrew, thanks for the recommendations and expertise. I'm currently 1-0 in my fantasy league, but I'm in a current dilemma. Should I play it safe with AJ as an AJ Brown as my wide receiver 1, or give Amon-Ra a second chance? Should I play it safe with AJ as a wide receiver one or give I'm confused. Are you suggesting a potential trade in which you're trading Amon-Ra for AJ? Or vice versa? I'm curious as to what you mean by that, Sammy. That'd be great in terms of a clarification on that matter. Thank you. Hank Hennig in the chat says, would Marvin Harrison be someone to buy low? Yes, absolutely. Listen, there's too much talent within his... I mean, listen, he's a 6'4", fast as a mother effer wide receiver that amongst all the wide receivers that have come out of, college recently is one of the most talented. He's legitimately up there with Jefferson's and Chase. He'll get there. Just give him some time. Week 1 was a tough matchup for sure. Does Jaden Daniels stay above 20 points per game? This week, he's about to score 20-plus points. I mean, he plays against the New York Giants, so imagine what kind of damage he's going to be able to accomplish against that defense. So I'd venture to say that it's not going to be a consistent factor because, again, he's not going to score 2 touchdowns per game, and nor is he going to get 88 rushing yards per game. But in terms of the overall potential, I think he's got a chance. I mean, that's why we ranked him in the top 12. That's why I thought he could be a potential league winner, because if he's able to just keep that rushing upside up there and then also start to accelerate his his passing game to a quarterback level in the NFL, we could see a lot of production. Okay, so I need clarifications from Sammy and Abide Los Angeles. So I'm going to look for those really quickly. Abide says, I would be trading away Chase and Henry. No, I'd keep Chase and Henry. I'm fine with keeping those two. Let's see here. In the chat says, greetings, Andrew. Thanks for 5 years. Thoughts on Madison going forward? Look, I mentioned it in the waiver wire episode earlier today. I think Alexander Madison is literally just a third down back that is going to have value because of the negative game scripts. Sure, he scored a touchdown, but outside of scoring a touchdown in a full PPR, he could be a guy that is a lower end RB3 under the assumption that he can have games where he's getting 4 to 5 potential receptions and then also able to carry the ball a couple times a game. So if he's going to be in that role on a consistent basis, which he should be primarily because there'll be in a lot of negative game scripts, this week taking on the Baltimore Ravens, they're not expected to win by any means. So in that kind of a circumstance, I would venture to say there's a pretty good chance that he will have value, but not enough to where I'm like starting him every week. I think he's a player that I'm willing to have potentially on my bench in a deeper league. If I'm playing in a double flex league and it's a really thin, like 14, 16 team league, sure. But until Zamir White potentially goes down with an injury, if he ever does, which I don't expect him to because he's a big, strong back, but unless he's going down with an injury, Alexander Madison does not get into that top 36 conversation on a consistent basis within my weekly rankings. Let's see here. Solars says, I have so much trust in you. So thoughts on Olave in London? Also, can you say, shout out to Sean from math class? All right, well, I said it. So there you go. Olave and London. Okay, here's my initial thoughts, right? Not enough opportunity. Both of them should be able to play significantly better going forward. The issue with London didn't have a catch until, I think in the second half, didn't have a single reception. Drake London was unfortunately a byproduct of the fact that Kirk Cousins wasn't protected. The offensive line could not protect. TJ Watt was on his ass the whole game. The right tackle, McGarry for the Atlanta Falcons, rinsed the whole game. I mean, TJ Watt put up, he proves to everyone every week that he's a top tier defensive end and the defensive player of the year candidate. But he was putting on a absolute highlight reel. As for, again, Drake London, byproduct of the fact that, again, if Kirk Cousins doesn't have 2.5 seconds to drop back and look down the field to throw the ball, Drake London in those deeper routes across the field, not going to really get too many opportunities. As for Olave, didn't really need to utilize him. Everybody else was finding success. The run game was ultimately the biggest factor, and the fact that they took an early lead in which they didn't really require his utilization within the second half. He'll be better as we continue on. They take on Dallas this week. That's a huge test. It's going to require them to throw the ball a lot in that second half. Let's see here. Rowett says, hey, Andrew, I need some help. I have Jalen Hurts, Kenneth Walker, Jalen Warren, Jamar Chase, Olave, Ferguson, Higgins. Bench is Jaden Daniels, Mason, Elliott, Algier, Palmer, and Downs. Focus on improving RB2. As it currently stands, yes, that is your biggest focus and need. If it requires trading away Jaden Daniels off of a huge performance, I don't think it's a bad idea. Additionally, you're going to have Mason, could be a trade where you could send Jordan Mason to the Christian McCaffrey manager for running back depth as well there, Rowett. All right, let me go ahead. Let me make sure there wasn't any super chats that I missed. I also wanted to take care of Sammy. I don't know where. Okay, let me look up Sammy. Control F, Sammy. Sammy, nowhere in the chat. Okay, Sammy. So look, in terms of your question, I don't know what you're asking. So once we can get that clarified, we'll be good to go. Jake or J-Lack says, oops. I don't even know who that is. Okay, never mind. Thoughts on Hollywood Brown, says Braden. Braden, at this point, Hollywood Brown will have value within the offense. As to, is he going to be a dependable weekly start? I hope so, but I don't know if that's going to be the case. Rashee Rice is going to be the number one alongside of Kelsey, most likely. There are going to be the occasional touchdowns that will go to Worthy, that will go to Rice, Kelsey, but also Marquise Hollywood Brown once he's healthy. Luckily, his injury is not like a calf injury or a hamstring. It's, you know, it's like almost his like solar plex / shoulder. I don't know. It's some like rib injury of some sort. Anyway, luckily it's not an injury that could re-aggravate potentially in terms of pulling a hamstring once again, which once he's healthy and ready to go, I'm confident in terms of getting him in a deeper league as like a second flex option, hopefully going forward. All right, let's see here. Jake says, would you bench Marvin Harrison for Rashee Rice, Tank Dell, or healthy T. Higgins? Going into this week against the LA Rams, no, I wouldn't. I would probably bench him for Rashee Rice, but I don't think I'm benching him for Tank Dell or T. Higgins. T. Higgins isn't going to be healthy for a while. That hamstring injury is just going to continue to bug him. How much fab do you throw on Jordan Mason? Depends. Do you have Christian McCaffrey? Because that really does make a huge difference. If you do have Christian McCaffrey, you might have to spend a lot more in order to make sure your league mates aren't able to get him at all, which is going to cost you a pretty penny because you're not only getting a running back that is your handcuff, but you're also getting a running back that could have huge, potential implications of being an RB1 rest of season if Christian McCaffrey is to re-aggravate that injury potentially on hand. Steve sends in a super chat. Thank you, Steve. Greatly appreciate it. Steve says the following. Would you trade Diggs for Puka Nacua if I can cover wide receivers for a few weeks? Nico, DK, BTJ, Godwin on roster. Okay, here's the thing. I'm not a doctor, and I don't know what exactly a PCL injury means in terms of longevity of a reoccurring injury over the course of the season. So if we can get a legitimate, I know that there's fantasy doctors out there on Twitter, on YouTube. If we can get an opinion from a fantasy doctor in regards to what a PCL injury kind of means in terms of and I haven't looked this up yet because again, all I've been doing for the last couple hours is working on running back video tomorrow and watching the game. So as it currently stands, if we can get some confirmation as to what kind of an injury that is, what kind of potential re-aggravation that could take place, I don't mind it, but that's only if we can get a confirmation that he can come back and be fine for the remainder of the year. Otherwise, if this is going to be something where he's going to return, play 3 weeks, get injured again, miss some time, return, play 3 weeks, get injured again, then at that point, it's not worth it. Logan says, are we panicking on Amari Cooper? No, he had 9 targets. I think that's promising. Playing against the Dallas Cowboys defense is definitely no joke, especially when you have second string left and right tackles in the game. Obviously, Tristan Wirfs did not play, which definitely did not help the case of Deshaun Watson when he's getting barreled down by, the defensive ends of the Dallas Cowboys. One who is going to, in a couple, I would say probably by next year, Parsons is going to be the highest paid defensive player in the league. DeMarcus Lawrence on the other side played extremely well. So going forward against Jacksonville this week, I know that there's Josh Allen coming after him, but I think we'll see a better performance out of Amari Cooper. I think just week one's performance against the matchup was just tough in itself. Jaden Oliver sends in a question. Thank you, Jaden. Is Brandon Ayuk a good wide receiver 2 to start after the performance? Again, you got to remember, Brandon Ayuk wasn't expected to do much in the game, first and foremost because of the matchup, and then second of all, because of the fact that, again, he is still, not in full game shape. He did not participate in training camp. This game was not expected to be a Brandon Ayuk kind of career game. Over the course of the last couple weeks, they have probably prepared to keep Deebo Samuel, who was the featured role within the offense, and in a lot of utilization from Juwan Johnson. So going forward, there will be more Brandon Ayuk. Do not concern yourself with it. If you are someone who is potentially in the market of trading for Ayuk, I would also look to do that because he will have a lot of value going forward here. Would you drop Higgins? Absolutely not. You don't need to drop him. Just put him on your injured reserve. And even if there's an opportunity of, hey, I don't have any injured reserve spots, you keep him for sure. Drew says, haha, look at my Discord message. Okay, let me go ahead and I need to fire up Discord though. So I don't have that open. Again, for those of you who are joining us this beautiful Monday night after the conclusion of week 1, welcome. Hope you guys are doing well. Again, we're going to be here for probably the next 30 minutes answering a couple more questions. If you guys haven't yet already, do me a favor, click the like button down below. Continue to support the channel. And also continue to support the idea that I'm going to try to live stream every day for the remainder of the season. That's something that I've kind of set my mind to, and I'm going to try to do it. So I'll also be back tomorrow night, and the night after that, and the night after that, and the night after. But anyway, greatly appreciate you guys supporting, and of course joining us today for the live stream. I appreciate it. All right, Drew, let's see what your question is via Discord. Let's see here. So his question is, I need a share. Haha. So I was winning by 0.53. And he had Christian McCaffrey. And as soon as I got the alert, I ran and picked up the 49ers third string and Kyle Juszczyk for a good measure in order. And I picked up the Jets RB2 and got the win. Wait, so you're telling me you literally made... Wow, you did. Holy crap. That is absolutely legendary. So you're telling me you went out. You picked up all 4 available potential running backs, up 0.53 fantasy points. If he had picked up Juszczyk, if he had picked up Braylon Allen, if he had picked up the third string running back for the 49ers, you would have lost this game. But you ensured victory because he had to play Patrick Taylor Jr. as his running back who got 0 points. Holy shit, Drew. That is absolutely... I mean, that's a post on Reddit. That's a post on Reddit right there. That's good karma coming in your direction. Holy crap. Congratulations. That is absolutely fucking hilarious. That is crazy. Wow. Okay. That is unbelievable. Great job, Drew. That's nuts. BitKing777. I don't see your message in the chat. Let me go see if I can find it. By the way, let me look for Sammy again. Sammy in here? Sammy. I have both receivers. I'm talking about their matchups in week 2. You play them both. Absolutely play them both. They got great matchups this week. I'm not worried about Amon-Ra against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. If I'm not mistaken, Amon-Ra took them on twice last season. Once in the regular season, one in the NFL playoffs. Amon-Ra against Tampa Bay last year. One of the games, 12 catches, 124 and a touchdown. The other game, 8 catches for 77 and a touchdown. Amon-Ra is going to be a top 5 wide receiver this week. Mark my words. I was going to say mother effing words. I'm starting to get a little bit unhinged here. It's getting late. Andrew's starting to get unsettled. Anyway, thank you for the clarification, Sammy. Keep them both, man. Keep them both. BitKing777 sends in the following question. Says, would you pick up Alan Lazard? Seems like Rodgers likes. I mean, look, he has a great rapport with Rodgers. They were both in Green Bay in 2022, the final year of Aaron Rodgers within the Green Bay Packers. Alan Lazard that season was a solid option. I mean, even though eventually, as time progressed, we did end up seeing Christian Watson become the number 1 of that offense in 2022 with the Green Bay Packers. To begin the year in 2022, Alan Lazard was a great option. So even if that's the case this season, in which Alan Lazard is going to be the option early until we see, Garrett Wilson step up and really become the clear number 1, or potentially even see Mike Williams with an extended role, Alan Lazard in 2022 finished as wide receiver 32 overall in an Aaron Rodgers-led offense. Within that season, he finished as, that is ridiculous. Wide receiver 32 overall, yeah. In that year, 60 receptions on 100 targets, 788 yards, 6 touchdowns, 145 fantasy points and a half PPR. So yes, he is a potential pickup option for this upcoming week, for sure. I'm not going to ignore the fact that he got all those opportunities. Paul sends in a question. Thank you, Paul. Says PPR quarterback, Hurts. Okay, running back is Pacheco and Jones. Wide receivers are CeeDee Lamb and Debo. Tight end is Kincaid, flex is Cup. Wow, you're in a really good position here, Paul. Bench is Rice, Thomas Jr., Javonte, Hubbard, Singletary, Goddard. RB2 and tight end for week 2. Kincaid is your tight end for week 2, for sure. As for your RB2, when you say Jones, do you have Aaron Jones as your RB2? I don't know if there's any other Jones, technically. Let me check. Any other Jones? No, that's it. Aaron Jones. You're good. Play Aaron Jones. Your roster, Paul, is, I mean, beautiful. The fact that you can't start Rashee Rice hurts me, but you could always, you can go make some moves and make huge upgrades potentially there. That's for sure. Okay. Where are we at? Moving down the list. David sends in a super chat. Thank you, David. David says, I'm in the rare leagues that Jameson Williams is available off wire. Okay, got it. Would you put him as the number one priority over Dobbins and Likely? I have McBride. Considering you have McBride, you don't need Isaiah Likely. Additionally, Jameson Williams versus Dobbins, it's just a matter of which position do you prioritize? Which one do you need? Which one do you need more depth of? If the answer is that you need a wide receiver, then yeah, let's pick him up. I don't have an issue with that. Justin says, should I trade DK Metcalf or Godwin for Marvin Harrison? I trade both of them for Marvin Harrison right now, immediately. Zamir White or Jaleel McLaughlin? McLaughlin got a lot of touches. In a full PPR, it might be McLaughlin, to be honest. Thank you, Jake. Rob Manul says, what is the trade value of Mason to Christian McCaffrey owner? I have him in a dynasty and a redraft. Dynasty, I'm not 100% certain. Again, there's a lot of factors to the dynasty. As for the value in a redraft, I mean, again, you're trying to just, what you would do theoretically is you give Mason and another player for an upgrade. Like, let's say, for example, I give Mason and a receiver for an upgraded wide receiver, theoretically. That's what I'm looking for. Or Mason and a running back for another upgraded running back, potentially. Ajax or AJX says, Andrew, Olave for DK? I'd rather have Olave. Much rather have Olave there. All right. The Murasan family says, is Javonte Williams droppable? I have Gibbs and Achane. I think you still want to have him on roster. If you're saying, hey, I have Javonte Williams, or I can go pick up J.K. Dobbins and I can immediately get J.K. Dobbins, at that point, I can understand it. If you're playing in one of those kind of, if it's potentially a league that's not deep and it's not too many teams, and there's not too many bench spots, at that point, yeah, that's fine. But you'd have to get running back compensation for the drop, because again, he's still a starter, and I don't feel 100% comfortable just dropping him after 1 week of performances. Bassa B says 2 of 3 for week 2. Thomas Jr., Pickens, and Pittman. Okay, as it currently stands, Pittsburgh takes on, I would probably play Brian Thomas Jr., and I'd probably you know what? Brian Thomas Jr. against Cleveland is not great. I don't love Pickens against Denver either, because that means a lot of Patrick Surtain. Pittman is fine against specifically the Green Bay Packers, but again, he gets Jair Alexander. All 3 of these wide receivers have tough matchups, but if it's me, I'm probably ending up playing Pittman, and I'm probably ending up playing Brian Thomas Jr. in this circumstance here. Thank you for the question, Bassa. Okay, let's see here. Michael says, I really need help. Was offered 2 trades. Need help. Was offered BTJ and Najee Harris for Connor and T. Higgins. And okay, hold on, wait. So you were offered. Somebody was going to give you Najee Harris and BTJ for Connor and T. Higgins. I still prefer Connor and T. Higgins rest of season. As for your follow-up question, was offered the same first 2 guys and Amari Cooper for Ayuk and Connor. I'd probably still rather have Ayuk and Connor rest of season there. So I'm going to just probably tell you to just keep it as such. Is Eckler droppable? Only in a standard league. In a half PPR, full PPR, he's not droppable. Nathan Salazar sends in a question. Thank you. You know what's funny? I had a teacher named Nathan Salazar a long time ago. Full PPR trade. Jaden Reed, Mason for Zeke and Neighbors. Jaden Reed and Mason for Zeke and Neighbors. Jaden Reed and Mason for Zeke and Neighbors. That's a really good question. Okay. Under the assumption that Christian McCaffrey is going to come back, you're getting an upgraded wide receiver and you're getting a starting running back for a team. It works. That trade works. I don't have an issue with that trade. It works. But God, does Neighbors need to play better as we go on. he's going to need to get way more targets in his direction. Obviously he played Stephon Gilmore week 1. This upcoming week against Washington, it's probably the best idea to buy Neighbors now before this game against Washington, because he's about to, have one of those nuclear performances potentially here. With Etienne, will Etienne be good even with Bigsby doing well? The thing about Bigsby's utilization was primarily because they were up for that game for the entirety of the contest. The Jacksonville Jaguars are either winning or tied for every single moment of that game until the final 4 seconds. That's why they ran the ball so much with Bigsby. When they continue on, when they play against Cleveland this week and the running game isn't a vital option, and they're going to have to pass and they're going to have to be in a lot of third down and long situations, Etienne will be on the field. He will be the vast majority of the overall touches out of this backfield, whether it's on the ground or through the air. I'm not too worried about it. Landon sends in a question. Thank you, Landon. I don't see the message attached to it, Landon, but once it comes through, let me go ahead and look up your name, Landon. Yeah, do me a favor and just type in the live chat. I'll be able to answer that. Thank you. Paul says the following. Paul says, tempted to go Singletary versus Washington defense? I would too. Over Jones versus 49ers defense? Thoughts? 49ers fan here. Aaron Jones played pretty well against the 49ers in the NFL playoffs with the Green Bay Packers, but this is a little bit of a different offense. Sam Darnold versus his former team. As it currently stands, I haven't even gotten to Aaron Jones in terms of my rankings, but Singletary over him, I don't think I can do it. I don't think I can gut it. Personally, I can't do it if you're strong enough. What's that meme with Tommy Lee Jones, where it's Men in Black? It's like, is it worth it? If you're strong enough. I'm not strong enough. I'd probably just play Aaron Jones there. Would you trade Ayuk for Marvin Harrison? I would. Should I use my waiver claim early on Likely or keep Goddard? I don't like Goddard. I'm going to be honest. The thing about Goddard is that he doesn't score touchdowns. Will he get opportunity and get yardage? Sure, but he doesn't score enough touchdowns to be anything more than a low-end tight end 1, which ultimately is about 6 to 7 points per game. If that's on average. If you get below average, you're kind of screwed. Let's see here. AJ says, should I use my... Okay, so we took care of that one. Thank you, AJ. Nathan Lusk says, why do some draft mates not trade enough out the whole year? Why do some of the people in your league not trade? It's because they're too comfortable. You have to play in a league where it forces them to trade. What I mean by that is that if you play in a league in which you have a super flex, an additional flex, and less bench spots, it will force people to have to make trades. So you can adjust your league in a format in which it will incentivize trades to have to happen. Okay, we took care of that. I'm waiting for Landon. Let me go ahead and see if Landon typed in the chat. He did. Landon says, okay, yeah, we took care of Landon's question. Again, thank you, Landon. I appreciate the super chat, my man. All right, guys. We've been here for, let's see, how long have we been live for? It says about an hour and 10 minutes. Not bad. Okay. We're still good to go. In about 10 minutes, I'll probably go ahead and call it here. I'll be back tomorrow with my top 40 running back rankings for week 2 of the 2024 fantasy football season. And then I'll be back also tomorrow night prior to waivers running and stuff like that, so we can continue to ask these questions and get everybody on the right page. Tua or Burrow this week? I'll tell you on Thursday once the video comes out. I think it's too early to claim at this moment. Obviously, Tua plays on Thursday against the Buffalo Bills, but the Miami Dolphins have not played well against the Buffalo Bills the last couple times. So that keeps me a little bit concerned. But then on the other end, you got Burrow having to play against the Chiefs. We'll know by Thursday, or I'll know by Thursday. I got to do some research. I got to watch some film. Let's see here. Daron says, you trading Henry for Chase if you have Walker. What does it say? If you have Walker, Brian Robinson at running back. I am trading Henry for Chase regardless of what I have at running back. Give me Chase rest of the season over Derrick Henry. Is Leggett droppable to grab a Ferguson replacement? Yes. Anything to get a replacement, it's fine. Because you can drop Leggett. Then once later in the week, Ferguson goes to out or potentially IR, then you can move him there and then pick up Leggett again, and then you'll be okay. Rice or ETN in a PPR? Straight up, I'd rather have ETN rest of the season, just because, I mean, yeah. If it's like week 2, who am I starting? That's a different conversation to be had. Why are you so confident in Marvin Harrison? Talent, number one. Number two, he should be, based on the fact that he was a top 5 selection in the NFL draft, he should be heavily utilized within this offense. Obviously, because of the cornerback coverage, young wide receiver in the first NFL game, there's going to be learning curves, right? That's just how it is for every player. In week 1, wasn't given enough opportunity. But as they progress, I can guarantee you that the offensive coordinator is getting a call from the owner saying, hey, you know the guy we spent the number 4 overall pick on? Yeah. Can we get him the ball? Like, what are we doing? So don't worry. He'll be fine. And it's talent. That's purely what it is. It's a matter of his talent is so superior to a lot of other receivers that when you see the talent and it passes the eye test, it is clear that they have to get him the ball, because once they do, he's going to make some noise. Nolan sent in a super chat. Thank you, Nolan. Nolan, let me see what exactly your question is. Okay, so Nolan's question is the following. I just got offered Garrett Wilson for Debo. I already have Breece Hall, though. Should I accept it? Double stacking Jets isn't... I don't love the idea, but ultimately, I think it's probably the better move. I'll take it. I don't have an issue with that. They're not going to be playing the 49ers every week. That's a given. They'll be able to tear up teams in the future. For now, it was a test, and they'll learn from it. I don't mind making that move at all. David sends in a question, says, would you rather play a stud would you rather play a stud of a crap team, aka Malik Neighbors on the Giants, or a wide receiver 2/wide receiver 3 on a great team like Jamison Williams or Keon Coleman? I would like to play, typically, the stud on the crap team. Typically. Opportunity is king in fantasy football. Opportunity is king. Now, if you can guarantee me that Jamison Williams is getting 9 targets a game every week, I'd rather play him, because then his opportunity is going to outshine anything that Neighbors does, right? Okay, let's see here. What does it say? Jake Moody legacy game? Yeah, he kind of redeemed himself, because wasn't it because Jake Moody missed a PAT or a field goal in the... Yeah, isn't it because he missed a PAT or a field goal in the Super Bowl that they had to go to overtime? Am I mistaken? Are we starting Scary Terry next week? Absolutely. If I'm not mistaken, Scary Terry's his career against the Giants is like legendary numbers. Let me go ahead and let me pull this up. If I'm not mistaken, I mention this every year in fantasy. I've done it for like the last 5 years. He tears apart the New York Giants secondary. The last game he played against them, or the last couple games, his averages are pretty gnarly across the board. So probably going to play him against this team. Yes. Let's see here. Hippo sends in a super chat. Says, Alan Lazard or Alec Pierce off of waiver? I'd rather have Alan Lazard. Alec Pierce is going to disappear sooner rather than later. He is a deep ball threat. Outside of that, A.D. Mitchell and Josh Downs are going to take his snaps going forward. You got to remember, Alec Pierce didn't even play last year. And that'll continue as we progress. Okay, Muskendall sends in a super chat. Says, lost Ferguson, picked up Freiermuth, Parkinson, or Hill. Between the three, I think it's probably in your best interest as it currently stands to probably pick up Parkinson and then Freiermuth if you don't get Parkinson, and then Hill last within the bunch. Thank you. Sean says, I have Pitts on and the first waiver. Should I still pick up Likely? The team is... you don't... Okay, look, the only reason you'd ever pick up Likely with your number one waiver priority is if you're looking to trade him to the Mark Andrews manager or somebody who lost Ferguson or potentially David Njoku. So if you want to use the waiver wire to get Likely, you can, and you can try to sell him hot right off the rippy skip. Okay, good to go there. Rice or Ayuk rest of the season? In a PPR, it might be Rice. I don't know. I got to think about that. Michael says, I made an error in the trade question. Was the other way around. I'm trading Najee, BTJ, and Cooper for Ayuk and Connor. Then that's fine. I'll take the Ayuk Connor side. I don't have an issue with that. If you've got the depth to be able to handle that move, I'll take it. Jameson is going to want a new contract, and the Lions are going to want to see what they drafted 2 years ago. He'll have a good year. I hope so. Same thing with T. Higgins, man. Let's hope he gets healthy because he needs a new contract too. Are you sold on? Are you sold or pass on Amari Cooper with Watson as quarterback after seeing the Browns on Sunday? I'm not too worried about the performance with Deshaun Watson from this week's game. Last year with Deshaun Watson, Amari Cooper was averaging 14.7 fantasy points per game. We're gonna get back on track this week. Just be patient with it. It's just one bad game. I'm not too keen on writing off Amari Cooper. He's a great talent. Gil sends in a question, says, next week, Ayuk or McLaurin? Probably going to play Ayuk there this upcoming week. Against the Vikings, I'll take Ayuk there. I don't have an issue with that. Pollard or Moss for week 2? Tennessee plays against the Jets, and then Moss, the Bengals play against I'll probably play Pollard there comfortably. Just traded Neighbors for Olave. What do you think? I like that trade. I don't have an issue with that at all. Okay. I think that's pretty much, what does it say? Bucky Irving or Tank Dell on waivers in a non-PPR. Unless unless one of them is specifically a kind of handcuff for you, maybe you have Rachaad White, maybe you have ETN. If neither of them are a handcuff, I'd probably just rather have Tank Dell in that scenario. Bucky Irving got a lot of his workload pretty much late in that game. Like 6 of his 9 overall carries were accumulated quite literally when they were up 16 points already. So a lot of Bucky Irving's work, and same thing with Tank Bigsby. They're both kind of in the same position, both going to see lesser usage going forward from my perspective. Hopefully, at least, because I obviously want to see the value of ETN and Rachaad White, guys that who were both top 10 running backs last year, sustain. Anadi says, if I'm spamming, please just let me know so I can stop asking, Andrew. Honestly, if I see your name, Anadi, considering you're in here often, I try to answer it. But yeah, I mean, I don't think you're spamming. I think you're fine. Your question anyway. B-Rob and Likely on waivers. Should I spend the number 2 overall waiver on one of them or should I save the waiver priority? I have Njoku, but I have a trade in which trade for Kelsey or McBride. If you can trade, well, okay, here's the thing. You have to value it out in terms of Brian Robinson Jr. is going to be a starter for the remainder of the season. If you pick him up, he will give you value. Same thing with Likely. If you pick him up, he will give you value. So unless you think there is going to be another crazy injury, which again, there will be, that is going to grant another player extreme value off of the waivers, you can go for it. But if I'm in your position, I'm probably picking up Brian Robinson or Likely, either of the two. Probably Brian Robinson, especially if you need running back depth. Hippo Sack says, Jaden Reed or Brian Thomas Jr. Rest of season, probably Jaden Reed, but that's under the assumption that we get Jordan Love returning sooner rather than later. Is $25 out of 100 too much for Likely? I have Njoku. I don't think that's too much. No. 25%, I think is what you're going to need in order to beat the Mark Andrews manager from taking it. I love when I ask a question and it makes you really think. I don't love that. That hurts my brain. Can I get a who dat? 47 points. Yeah, listen, do it against the Cowboys and I'll give you an even bigger who dat. How about that? Thank you, John. I appreciate that. Are the Panthers wide receivers startable? No, not right now. Definitely not right now. In time, hopefully. One of them, maybe. We'll see. Twisted Folk says, I had Jordan Love and Caleb Williams. I dropped my worst bench player and got Stafford. Very well. Would you keep Caleb Williams or drop him for Mayfield or Geno? I would drop him, legitimately. Drop him like a hot potato at this point. Because what Geno or Mayfield can provide for your team in the next coming weeks is probably more valuable, and you want these early wins rather than having to wait out and see what Caleb becomes. That first performance is not very promising, to say the least. I need to turn on the air conditioner, and then we're good to go. Lamosity says, I was offered Montgomery and Pittman for Kirk and Ramondre. Should I accept it? You were offered. Someone wants to give you Montgomery and Pittman for Ramondre Stevenson and Christian Kirk. Yes, take the deal. Don't even think twice. Give me Montgomery and Pittman 10 times out of 10 there. Kyler or Daniels this week? Kyler against the Rams, Daniels against the Giants. It's going to be Jaden Daniels this week, most likely. London for Metcalf, full PPR. If you want Metcalf, you can go for it. Otherwise, I prefer to have London. I'll give him another chance. I'm hoping Mason gets another start. That's what everybody who has Mason is hoping that just another week. Christian McCaffrey, stay healthy, or get healthy, relax. There's no need to play, no need to come back so soon. Storm says, would you pick up Jameis in a super flex? No, I wouldn't. Until there's an actual designation, I don't want to waste a bench spot on a quarterback of that caliber. I'd rather just wait. I understand. I see the foresight. As someone who plays in a lot of Superflex leagues, I see the foresight there, Storm, but I don't think I do it. They don't really have the ability to bench Watson because the fact of the matter is they pay Deshaun Watson too much money. They do. And because of that, he is implemented to be the starting quarterback for the rest of time until his contract is over. Because again, you have to remember, it is a fully guaranteed contract. All of the money is in escrow. It can't go anywhere but his bank account. And yeah, again, when we're talking about the cap hits every year, it's unbelievable. They have to keep him as a starter. David says, spoiler, ? Where do you rank Likely / McBride week 2? I have no clue. Again, I haven't even started week 2. Week 1 just ended. I was only just working on running backs. Likely and McBride, I will have McBride ahead of Likely. I'll just tell you that much as of right now. What is the highest you would pay for Likely if you had Mark Andrews out of 100? The highest I would pay? Look, here's the thing. I do believe Mark Andrews is still going to be a top 12 player this year at the tight end position. It may not look like that after week 1, but I do believe that is going to be the case. So if you want to start them both, or you want to have both just in case Mark Andrews maybe falls out and really just turns to dust and he gets Thanos snapped in the next couple weeks, in that scenario, the most I would ever probably spend ever is like 31. That's it. That's what I would go with. Rubik says just in to say hello. Have a good night. Thank you, Rubik's. Crispy says, thoughts on Aaron Jones week 2? Don't love the matchup, but I like what I saw from the offense in week 1 in terms of overall opportunity share. AJX says, Cook and Olave for DK and ETN. I have Zay, Worthy, Ayuk, and JJ. I also have JT and Montgomery and White. You're sending Cook and Olave for DK and ETN. I think I'd rather have... I'm okay with it. I think it's a relatively even trade. It's close. I think it may be in favor of Cook or Olave, but if you want to make the trade, I don't have an issue with it. I think it's close enough to where I could justify it in the future. London and Debo for St. Brown. I think you're giving up too much for St. Brown. Unless you're playing in a smaller league, 8 teams, 10 teams, in which you can afford to trade away 2 starters for 1, especially the caliber of the players that you have. I think you're selling a little bit low there for London. What's the ceiling on McConkey? I don't know if there is. I mean, technically the ceiling would be, if he continues to play well and continues to get himself red zone utilization, there really shouldn't be a expected the ceiling is not going to, I don't know, man. I'm thinking like low end wide receiver 2. And if they're in a matchup where the run stop defense is incredible and they're going to throw the ball a bunch in that given week, he could be even better if they sit in a lot of 11 personnel sets and they throw the ball for the entire game. They only threw the ball 26 times on Sunday against the Raiders, which again is because of the game script and how it kind of played out. So if they throw the ball 37, 45 times in a game, McConkey could be even better than a top 24 player in terms of ceiling. All right, couple more questions and then I'm out. Can we please get a huge Laporta game next week? I agree, Juice. I agree. Is Evan Ingram trash? No, absolutely not. Evan Ingram was he was the number 2 tight end overall last season. The year before that, he was a top 5 overall tight end. Ingram is the furthest thing from trash. Remember the past. Remember that past success leads to future achievement. Again, the opportunities will be there. You just got to give it, got to be patient with it. Iron sends in the final question of the night. Says, safe to say Jaden Daniels is an auto start rest of season? Not rest of season. In tough matchups, it's going to be difficult. But in the circumstance of going up against the Giants this week, yes, an absolute auto start. You got to remember, when you have Sam Darnold having career numbers, throwing an 80% passing completion percentage against that secondary, I can only imagine what the capabilities of Jaden Daniels is going to be. All right, guys, I want to thank you guys for supporting the channel, continuing the support. Again, if you guys want additional rankings, every single Sunday for the remainder of the season. Underdog Fantasy is the way to do it. Again, signing up today using code Andrew, making a first-time deposit, a minimum of $10 will get you that. Additionally, you can also check out the Patreon if you are not eligible to sign up via Underdog this season because you've used the code in the past, or you're not eligible based on your current location. The Patreon link is down in the description. All of that is available to you if you guys are interested with that certain pledge. You'll get weekly rankings on Thursdays and Sundays. You'll also additionally get access to the private Discord, which we'll be, of course, interacting with every Tuesday and Saturday at an extended basis in terms of live voice chats. Additionally, you can ask me unlimited questions via Patreon for the remainder of the season. So if you guys are interested, check that out. I greatly appreciate it. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to cue the music. I am so lucky that Garrett Wilson and CJ Stroud won me that bet this weekend, and I'll be back tomorrow with my top 36 running backs. I'll see you guys. Peace. Top 40.